time ever, the United States federal government's total public debt has reached $34 trillion. That's roughly $101,000 in debt for every single person who lives in the United States. For comparison purposes, a previous record of $33 trillion in debt was reached in September of 2023, so it took 3 months to add $1 trillion. This is a quite depressing achievement for a country where interest payments on its own debt will soon surpass any other government expense category. So now that national debt is more than $34 trillion, what exactly does that mean? Well, the threat to the United States' economic future just got a lot bigger. It is truly difficult to imagine $34 trillion. So, to put this number in perspective, this is roughly the value of the economies of China, Germany, Japan, India, and the UK combined. Or, if that doesn't impress you, $34 trillion is enough to pay for a public 4-year degree for every single US high school student for the next 106 years. Can you imagine that? Peter Peterson Foundation reports that at this pace, within the next 10 years, the American federal government will spend more on interest payments than it traditionally has on R&D, infrastructure, and education combined. The more money the government spends on interest payments, the less capital it will invest back into the country, back into its economy, its infrastructure, social programs, and development. Washington has been spending money under this illusion that we have unlimited resources, but we all know that it's not true. Some people try to argue here that the United States can print cash all day and that will solve all of its fiscal problems. But that actually couldn't be further from the truth because, well, our money printer has been on for a while, as you know, and look where that got us. Printing cash would only make things worse. This total national debt of $34 trillion includes money that the government owes to itself, as well as to foreign investors. I do want to say that there's an entire video here on my channel that explains how US federal government debt is structured and who owns it, so I will link it down below for you. The US debt has surged to historic levels relative to the size of the US economy, and it is on track to double within the next 30 years. This means that this mounting, absolutely massive wall of debt is going to do 3 things which will impact every single person in the United States in one way or another. The first one is it will raise the probability of a financial crisis in the near future. The second thing that I would like to point out is that it will hurt the United States economic growth, which means higher unemployment, lower wages, slower wage growth, among other negative consequences. And finally, the third outcome is less government spending on absolutely vital programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Affairs, and many others. So although it seems that national debt isn't that big of a deal, it's not our problem, it actually is. It is a ticking time bomb, and that fuse is getting shorter and shorter, judging by how quickly the federal government is taking on more and more debt. The growth is, in fact, exponential. $1 trillion in a matter of 3 months, $4 trillion in 2 years, and an increase of $10 trillion in just 4 years. If it continues this way, there's no denying the fact that that tipping point will be reached in no time at all. So how did we get here? The US has run annual budget deficits, meaning when its expenses exceed its revenues, for decades. It's been going on for decades. US annual deficit is forecasted to continue increasing through 2040. As the amount of debt goes up, the US will have less and less funds to spend on its global reach, such as humanitarian causes, diplomatic causes, and even its defense. In addition to that, growing debt may inevitably lead to a financial crisis because the country's economic growth will likely be slowed down under this burden of its debt. There is a chain reaction here. If the economy slows down or is unable to recover within a reasonable period of time, Think what that would do to the US ability to issue debt and to finance its government programs with its debt, as it's been doing. US Treasury auctions are already not as big of a success as they once were. Investors are starting to take geopolitical and economic risks seriously. They're starting to take that into account. And of course, the petrodollar is at stake now. So if the United States government has to resort to paying higher and higher interest to make its debt more appealing to investors, it is going to run into higher and higher borrowing costs. And so that cycle will continue, and we end up in a debt spiral. Will spending be ever reduced? Well, that is highly unlikely, since it's such an unpopular idea among both parties. The only thing that they may disagree on is what to spend money on, but they most certainly agree that money is best spent abroad funding wars instead of focusing on domestic issues. But in the event that the government does decide to start addressing the debt issue, it will have two options: raise taxes or lower spending, or both. It would be an extremely difficult sell because voters wouldn't like those two options no matter what, and since our leaders prefer to keep their seats as long as possible, it is much easier to ignore this issue and have our future generations somehow deal with it. Very quickly, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, my friends at ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN offers truly best-in-class encryption that keeps your internet traffic protected from hackers and from snoops. It uses the industry's most advanced VPN server, and it gives you control over your online privacy and how your data is being used. You can connect up to 5 devices at the same time with just one subscription. It is worth investing in protecting your whole home with ExpressVPN. Use the link that I shared in the video description below to claim your 3 full months of completely free service. I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As we're just about to start the new tax season here in the United States, I want to invite you to join my second channel. It is available both on YouTube and on Rumble, so you get to pick which one you prefer, for quick tax tips that will help you pay less taxes, as well as personal finance and small business content. Just the other day, for example, I uploaded an entire video with 6 very easy tips that will help you avoid paying taxes. So definitely check it out. I really hope that you find it helpful. I will see you in my next one tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.